All right, you've been following along in sequence. Hope you have, unless you already know this stuff, but it's still good to inculcate in that mind, repetition. I mean, that's how we get stuck in all these beliefs anyway, it becomes, I hate to use the word habit because that sounds like you're just running a program, but actually being the programmer, because habitually you know what the program, who you are as a program to create the programs in the first place. Okay? All right, we're still dealing with monarchy here. Monarchy is now governed by the voice of the people and acts as fideicommissium, who now represents the settlement of the common law and the title of the sovereign, chosen by the people to hold the land in trust. Mercer versus Attorney General of Ontario, 1881. Very, very good. If you're in a Commonwealth exclusively, that's Canadian. I guess it was Court of Appeals, the highest court there, or maybe it was Supreme, the highest court, Supreme Court of Canada. Yeah, that's probably what it was. Sorry, Supreme Court of Canada. That is a very good discussion of how each interest is subdivided and who has the right. And it says in there that the monarchy did not handle or transfer over legal title to the Parliament, like we saw when the back in the days of the Lords in the feudal system, to which they actually transferred the legal title into fiat first and fiat fees. That didn't happen between monarchy and government. Okay, what they did was give a right to use that legal title, which was an equitable use, to then administrate over that, just like the courts of chancery were given a right to administrate over the titles that were not relative to the common law. It's the same thing. It just get mirrored and mirrored and mirrored, okay? The Matrix, Inception, dream within a dream within a dream within a dream. And those people are still sometimes in the fifth, and those are the people that are having drool on their mouth and stuck in needles. They don't know anything from anything, even to them what they are at that moment in time, if they're living or not. Okay, that's the fifth level. That's just lost. And fourth would probably be the academic system, being educated within the academic world, being educated in the government, not thinking there's anything more than government, and that's okay because you've got your 2 cars and a house and got a job, your pension, all that. That's probably the fourth level of the dream world, that you don't really know what's really going on. The third would probably be where you start awakening and you see the divisiveness and you see the elite and you see the different parameters and you see how people are playing each other. And by the way, government only deals in Hegelian dialectic. That is it. Science in this world deals with the starts with an M. It's a Greek philosopher. Oh man, it'll come to me. It's not coming to me fast enough. And before that, it's Occam's razor. Well, sorry, just that word that I can't remember off the top of my head of who the foundational guy that stems off the principles, but it's massing facts upon facts and facts to find the truth, and it keeps on going ad infinitum, facts upon facts to create truths within those facts. That is predominantly the scientific world attached to government. And then there's the second level where you're starting to understand, as I am to comprehending the what I'm relaying here, how the system works. It's not against you, you're against it. You're starting to take 100% responsibility. You realize it's your own thing. Dorothy, you've always had the same power. That would be about the second level of the dream world within the matrix. And then the first one would be when you're no longer on English law and you are absolute in dominion rights, and you're creating agreements from there. Okay. Now, why did I go there? Yeah, there you go. That's how my mind works and needed to. Right, we were talking about Mercer versus Attorney General, 1881, where it shows that legal title, and it can't, here's the thing, it couldn't even pass that on to a parliament because parliament doesn't have a right to it, because those legal titles are held in the monarchy, in the common law, for the people who are before English law. Okay? And it had to be that way because if you force people into English law, that means you've got involuntary servitude and slavery, and those principles are abhorrent to English law. English law doesn't deal with involuntary servitude. They deal with agreements. They have to see the agreement. You're making it. Absolute. So so monarchy never handled or passed over legal title. Just get that. So your constitutions and everything else that you are trying to affect, you're just affecting the rights under the contract the government made with the monarchy. And then you're trying to say, I want more rights than the next guy, or I want to exclude my right. I want to give my right. I want to use the rights that have been given, subject to the agreement that the government has made with the monarchy in equity. That's what you're screaming. When you fight inequity, when you bring these A for Vs and the 1099 forms, when you use ECC codes, you bring in the international law settlements, you bring in discussions about the jibby jab and the other principle, false principle of the big V. Okay, I won't mention the name because I don't want to be AI's taking or slowing the ability for this video to get out by mentioning certain things. By the way, none of those exist either. They exist in the belief, just like equity exists and the property rights exist within that belief. Those beliefs that I've just talked about, all the things we learn about most in science, which are just relatively autonomous, and mathematicians who never deal with the principle, they can't deal with the principle, and that's all of our science, all of that. It's just all fiction. It has to be fiction because it deals under English law. Okay, so that wasn't transferred. It's a very good case to read. You're going to start seeing the divisions in there, but just based on this insert that I captured here, monarchy is now governed by the voice of the people, acts as predicaments. You see that? For the people, it acts. So in order for it to be a predicaments and a trustee, for lack of a better word, as much there's no trust that we've agreed to with our intent, but the trust to an operational law that makes sure that everything's separated, and when you're ready to go back home, Dorothy, it's there. That becomes your predicaments. That becomes the trustee. You become the absolute. Okay? See, isn't that perfect? Now they're held to that duty and power. That no matter what they do, they're held to that when you bring in that duty power upon notice to a proper court, a formal court, who can recognize that when you speak to it. Right? So that's a trustee position. A trustee doesn't exist until it's a settler. And a settler can dissolve that trust at any one time. Guess what? Also removing the burden. The monarchy has a burden. The government has a burden. Everyone has a burden subject to the duties and powers. You have a burden. We're creating the burden by continuing just to follow. So everyone's enslaved by our own actions of inaction to make our intent known, to become back to the right side, to come back to Kansas, if you will, and then effect from there. Oh, you're my trustee. Here's your duties and powers. Now I want you to go deal with government and deal with the trust. You don't have an agreement there is no contract. Stop going into court and saying, where's my contract? There is none in the first place. You never made one. That contract's between monarchy. You're just going through a tacit agreement that you want the beneficial interest in the trust, that's the operation of law, that you're just affecting that by your use of it, and you don't want to be filled with the obligation of full beneficiary or the Sesame Key Trust that's subject immediately to that common law trust that notices that legal title held. Okay? So there you go. And it says, who now represents the settlement of the common law? We already talked about settled. That's held in the monarchy. It's not settled in the government because the government has nothing to do with the common law. Separate completely. Equity is separate. Even though it follows the law, it is separate. It can't overreach the law because it's going to be subject to your interest. That's how it overreaches. It doesn't overreach because it's more powerful. Is that if your remedy is not in common law, then you go to equity. That's what equity is for. If your remedy is in common law, you don't need equity. Okay? And chosen by the people to hold the land in trust. In trust, that's where the land is. The land's there. Not property and equity and estates and so forth. The land is there. And guess what? The monarchy can do no wrong. Why can it do no wrong? Why isn't it able to do no wrong? Because it just holds the common law. God, the law. Its holder. The only thing it can do wrong is those who are performing a duty subject to the common law under the monarchy. That then can create a problem to which then you have actions to the courts. Here in Canada, it's the Crown Proceeding Act that we go through, and we enact that crown to bring in the issue that power and duty is not affecting based on us telling them to do so. Okay, see how important it is to have succinct duties and powers? We can go there and say, here, we're supposed to do this. We didn't have that. You have an anarchy. An anarchist, I'm not going to get to that. Forget it. That's because you don't understand law. Bottom line, that sorry to be so direct, but anarchists, I understand that you, just like atheists, are going against the God in the Bible, because again, it's a belief against a belief. An anarchist is going against their misinterpretation of what law is. Simple. You can't have anarchy. In fact, even to form a group, you're creating non-anarchy. Just like I same with the atheists forming a group and never coming to the principle, are forming a belief, another religion. It just is. Just get over it. Not a big deal. You're not your beliefs, you have beliefs. It's simple. Okay? Divinity is simplicity, and simplicity is divinity. So government works for a Hegelian dialectic. The word was just there again of the second, which they've created a massive amount of facts. That's the fiction. They'll keep you lost in those things. And then you have Occam's razor, where you remove as much facts as you get to, and you get to the core. That's the principle, and that's what I deal with. Okay. Before the common law, and from which the common law receives its initial foundation, is natural law. The rights of each individual, termed dominion rights, are to be secured and currently held in the monarchy. This is not a class interest, but a natural occurring right belonging in each individual, absolute, before English common law. And let's go to number 13.